G'day listeners and welcome to another episode of the Keeper League podcast. We're the AFL fantasy podcast that doesn't talk about the superstars. We only talk about the lesser knowns and the players that are going to bring value to your draft and Keeper League teams. My name's Heff and tonight I am joined by a member of Hat Chat, the first of a couple that are going to come on this show actually, but welcome Sanch to the podcast. How you going, mate?
Thanks, mate. Started with the biggest from Hat Chat. It's all downhill from here, I'm pretty sure. So I wouldn't get your hopes up after the cracking Hawthorn episode we've got to go.
Well, wait and see. There's Hawthorn are definitely an interesting team this year. So a lot of fantasy, I guess, especially Keeper League relevant names because we dig so deep into lists and stuff like that. With your midfield kind of clean out, there's a lot of opportunities. So I don't know. What's your take on it all? Were you a fan of the clean out as a supporter? What's the go?
I was a fan of the clean out last year when they tried to do it and be brutal. I was such a fan of it. Like, yep, let's start the rebuild now. And then clubs this year went, oh, you wanted to rebuild last year? Well, here we go. Let's actually drain you for what you've got and not give you anything in return. So, yeah, I mean, it got a lot under the belt of a lot of young guys, but I don't know. There's a lot to be desired at Hawthorn at the moment. So I've got no hopes for these next few years, but I hope we have a few young guns that that's all you can ask for in your team, really. It's just a few young guns to pop and really show something for the future, which some, we'll talk about them later, haven't really done that so far.
Yeah, it's always a bold strategy, especially when it looks like you're going to be throwing a few of young players to the wolves sometimes. So, it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. But like we said for fantasy, and especially in the draft and Keeper League circle, probably not so much for your classic. That's what your show revolves around. But, there's going to be some value options, I think, or players that might jump into new roles that might go to a different level. If they can get their hands on the footy, but we'll worry about that later. All right, so we'll get stuck into the show. This year, we're separating players into undervalued, breakout contenders, and stash options. So we'll jump straight in. The first one, it's the name on everyone's lips in the draft circle, I think, and then probably in some classic circle as well, and that's James Worpel. So, I don't know. With the midfield clean out, so many people think he's going to be one of the replacements. He's going to jump straight back into the midfield. What are your thoughts?
Look, last year it's hard because he wasn't actually out of the midfield. He just had, similar to Tom Mitchell, a pretty horrid role when he wasn't on the ball. So I think he still averaged about like 40% CBAs or something like that when he was actually in the team. Then he got injured. He was out of form, got thrown to the twos. So I find it so hard to put a number on Worpel because he's been thrown in so many different roles these last few years. So, in all honesty, in a few of my keepers and draft leagues, I'm just not touching him. Yeah. Like, someone's going to have a high price on him because of what he's done in the past. And unfortunately, you're not going to be able to get him for the price he's currently at. I know he's a tough keep for a lot of teams, but I think I can see teams in 10 teams, 15 keepers. He's going to be kept, and I just could not be touching him. So, a bit different for your salary cap because, you can just ride it and jump off if he fails. But, I think he's about third in line, honestly, in CBA. So probably behind Newcomb and Ward. But I just can't see that big enough upside to be throwing the kitchen sink at him. What are your thoughts on the midfield? I've got a list. I'll see what your thoughts are first, and then I'll just throw these names at you.
So I think Newcomb's your top dog in there. I wouldn't be surprised if Ward kind of steps up a bit this year and they use him a bit more. I'm semi-bullish on Carl Amon just because new recruit, and he's more one of your senior heads now as well. At Port Adelaide as well, he would mix between wing and midfield. Just trying to think who else you got off my top of my head. But last year you threw like a Dylan Moore in there late in the season. That worked pretty well. So you could see that going. Connor Nash, they moved him out to the wing, I guess, a little bit later on, but he was supposed to be a crash and bash tackler, accountable type, and it didn't kind of work out. But yeah, I'm not sure. And you've also picked up Cooper Stevens, so he might be in there as well. So I honestly have no idea. But just moving back to Worpel for a second. So let's just do a bit of a case study because I'm an owner. All right. So my thoughts right now, we keep 16. He's not in my best 16 right now. And here's my thoughts. You say he's still got 57% of the CBAs, but he had I think that was down by 14% on the previous year, and I think even more from the year before that. So he's already on the decline, and I figure that if Sam Mitchell had any plans for him, they would have done it last year because they already moved so many midfielders out. So why would they suddenly bump him back up? So I'm a bit skeptical on him. I love the salary cap call, but I'm not loving him for draft, that's for sure.
Yeah, again, it's such a tough hold. But if you look at his CBA and his analysis in there, even in those first, 8 or 9 rounds before he was injured, he was still like sixth in line for CBAs, and he had like 40 to 50% CBAs. So he was behind Newcomb, O'Meara, Titch, Nash, and Ward.
Yep.
It was just such a massive mix. So you throw those other 2 guys out. He's now a senior head in that midfield. So I can see a world where I think if he goes back to a waiver, someone early in a draft is taking a punt on him.
Yep.
Because it all depends on people's different midfield mixes. Like I know in a few of my keepers, I tend to be called Stack Zach because I load up on midfielders, and my midfield is just absolutely full. So I couldn't be the one that takes him. But someone's got a thin midfield and they're going to jump, and I think that's the time you do it, because I think there's a lot of reward. We saw what he did in his Peter Crimmins medal winning year. He was an absolute gun.
And that's the thing. That was best and fairest in his second season. Like crazy.
Yeah, I think if he gets the opportunity, he can really soar. But I do think there's going to be a lot of volatility in that midfield. That's, for example, we're not going to talk about a guy like a Dylan Moore, but I can't touch him this year. There's so much happening in that midfield.
Who knows?
I don't think there's going to be any premiums, but there's going to be a few guys that pop and have good runs in a shit team.
Yeah, that's the other thing as well. Like, you may have a lesser share of the possession as well. Like, you just might not have the ball in your hands as much, and that could attribute to that as well, particularly how teams, and Hawthorn will be the same, they'll want to move the ball quickly. We're already losing possessions, in terms of game style across the competition, and just being a club that suffers a bit from that, especially if you're not a good one, you might not just win the footy as much as well. So
we're not playing possession footy.
Yeah, exactly. We'll move on. I've got 3 guys that have been defenders, traditionally been defenders the last few years, and that's Jarman Impey, Jack Scrimshaw, and Chankuth Jarth. Now, last year there was a few injuries to some of them, I guess, but they all kind of declined last year, is what I'm trying to say. So Sicily returned. Do you think this was the catalyst for their kind of decline? And is there a world where one of these guys pops back up and becomes a handy scorer at some stage? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I'll go in order of relevance to me. Yep. Jack Scrimshaw is the one that got hurt by Sicily the most, I think. Like, straight off the bat, he was the distributor the year before last, and Sicily coming in, everything went through Sicily. We knew that. We saw his scores. So anything that came into that back line was getting put in Sicily's hand, and he was going as long as possible, or it was getting chipped back to him again for another +6. It wasn't going to Scrimshaw like it was the year before. So I think maybe a year of improvement when the team actually works together and less injuries. Injuries killed that back line last year. I don't think they had the same back 6 for a run of 3 games for the season. There was some crazy stats. So yeah, I just think Scrimshaw gets a bit of improvement out of just another year in that back line. I had him to pop last year. I really thought with Sicily coming back, he'd pop, but obviously went the other way.
Yep.
Jarman Impey, I think I see him as a wing hybrid. So this year, I don't know who I see as being the wingers. So for a guy like Impey, the structure we play hasn't particularly been a structure where one wing dominates and the other doesn't touch it. Like, you used to get a lot of the common teams this year.
Yeah.
Either wing gets it whenever. It doesn't matter. They don't play one side like we used to. We used to play on the left-hand side because we had 30 left footers on the field of 20. Yeah. And we just always played on the left-hand side, whereas now it's a great mix, so it goes anywhere. So I think Jarman Impey, I think, is massively capped in scoring, unless I don't see him even being a 70 guy. I think he'll have those games where he pops, but if he's playing as a hybrid half forward, hybrid half back, it's not really going to suit him, because there's a lot of distributors back there. You got guys like Hardwick, CJ bursts out of the back line, which is what Jarman Impey used to do.
Yeah.
Scrimshaw, Sicily, a lot of guys can get their hands on the footy. And Bramble, if he's fit, who knows where he's going to play.
Yeah.
And then Chankuth Jarth is one of my favourite players in the comp because of the way he takes the game on, and he gets in trouble for it a lot. But
absolutely.
Last year we didn't see it because he was injured. But I think he has to improve his defensive game first, because unfortunately, Sicily's not playing defensive every game, and CJ can play a lot taller than what he is. So,
and can intercept and do things like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, and him and Hardwick play similar roles, but on different types of players. So I think you see a guy like Hardwick pops for 3 games every now and then. I think that's something that CJ is going to probably do. If Hardwick has a lockdown on a smaller guy, then CJ might get off. But if there's a taller back line, then CJ's got to play tall. And
very matchup dependent.
It really gets difficult to to field him. But out of the three, I think Jack Scrimshaw's the pick of the bunch because he's playing defensively as such a lot less. His role doesn't change week. He's got the same role week in, week out. Just depends on if he gets the footy.
Yeah, exactly. And if Hawks get the footy too.
Oh, yeah, that's a tough part.
All right, well, that kind of leads in perfectly to we're moving on to the breakout contenders now. A guy who has played in defence traditionally over the last, 3 years of his career, his first 3 years of his career, and that's Will Day. A lot of talk of him moving up to the midfield on a wing this year. So what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so put this on your TikTok, Heff. Will Day won't just break out, he'll break the freaking ceiling. So this kid is going to explode. The word around the club is he is just ready to go. Give him the keys and he will explode. Now, I don't really know if that's going to be an inside-outside mix because that's what they were trying last year. But instead of giving it inside-outside, he got all inside and got bullied. So the training photos, he looks just ready to go. He still looks scrawny, but he doesn't look like that kid that just came out of school, like that 14-year-old kid like he has for the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
He's an elite junior scorer. And just if he gets thrown in there, like we're all expecting at Hawthorn that he's going to, I can see him being, he's not going to be your elite Zach Merritt breakout that plays inside outside of your human luggage, or I have to call him human luggage. But I think he's human luggage light.
Okay.
So if he breaks out to be a 90 this year, I am not surprised in the slightest. I think he is going to be the steal of so many drafts. Of a stanky 2 years of injury and role, he hasn't played the same role for 5 games straight.
Yeah.
In the last 2 seasons.
Yeah. And I guess injuries have really hampered him as well. That's been the other issue. My take on him is he looks like an outside type to me. Like, I know that you said he's put on a bit of size. I didn't know that, to be honest. But like you said, when he went into the inside midfield, he did get bullied a bit, which has him pegged in my mind for an outside role. I think there's one that he can take there as well. And listed as a defender this season, like, it's going to be pretty handy. My fear is just that he becomes like a dime a dozen winger after this season when he doesn't have defender status. I think after this year, if he breaks out like we're thinking, he just might be a bit less valuable in the future. That's all.
I think the same thing. And as an owner in 1 or 2 leagues, don't let that sway your decision. He, it's always been that thing on him that when he does break out, he's not going to break out as a defender or as a forward. He will break out as essentially a wingman. But his skills, they need to get into his hands. And we saw in roles he played last year, they couldn't get into his hands. And when they did, it was heavy in traffic and we were just getting bullied. So, I really do see him as an inside-outside mid and then resting out onto a wing this year. And I think if he gets a consistent 30 to 40% CBAs, I really love the role for him.
In our league, a few of our listeners will know this because it's been we've put it up on Twitter. I actually traded him to Kays.
I did hear of this.
Yeah, for Daniel Rich. So, but my thoughts are just like I'm seeing more around that kind of 80 mark, and then being around that 85 to 90 in the future. Whereas and I got Dyson Heppel in the deal as well, so I needed another defender. And my feeling was I just needed defenders going forward more so than what I thought would be a dime a dozen midfielder. But interesting your thoughts. You might think he might be a bit more than that. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
I love that trade. It's thinking for the future. And I'm sort of in the same boat. He's someone I'm definitely keeping this year because I'm quite high on him this year. Yeah. But I mean, after this year, if he only goes at 85, I say only, that's 25 points upside of what he went last year. Yeah. But if he goes to 85 and he's a mid next year, he's gone. So, But just when you got to cash in, that's the beauty of draft.
All right. Another big argument talking point on this podcast is the Hawthorn ruck combo and what it's going to be. So last year, Doss and Kays were Team Lynch and I was Team Reeves from the get-go, all right? Yep. So let that be known. We've shown that Lynch can't play football, all right? It's a fact now, okay? So the new contest is Reeves and Meek, I guess. So Kays is of the opinion that they won't bring Meek in to not make him number one ruck. But a lot of Hawthorn supporters I've actually talked to really like Reeves as a tap ruckman. He's going to get your first hands and he actually uses it. The hit-outs to advantage are actually quite good when he's in the side. And so you've got to weigh up what do you want in a ruckman. What are your thoughts on the whole mix?
Yeah, they're going to clearly play both.
Yeah,
I
so
can't
obvious,
see a
isn't it?
world where they do not play both.
Just looking at Hawthorn's history, like what you've done over the last 15 years probably. Always been
look
two
at the
rucks
teams that
inside.
Sam Mitchell played in.
Yeah.
In our premiership years.
Yep.
There was David Hale and whatever backup they wanted at the time.
You had Brent Renouf in there at one time. One stage, I reckon. Was he a premiership player?
That was a little while ago.
Yeah.
But then you bring in the types of like a big boy McAvoy that always had a second string ruck with him. Like when he was brought in to replace a David Hale, he always had a second string ruckman paired up with him. So, like Mark Pitnet left the club to become a number one ruckman.
Yeah.
Like we've had many ruckmen come and go. So I just can't see a world where they're both, and they're the best combo of ruckman. You haven't got two pure tap ruckman.
Yep.
You haven't got two pure around the ground. They both offer something different. So like, for example, with Reeves, he only offers 7 or 8 disposals a game. He doesn't get his hand on the footy and he doesn't take any marks. He averages 1.5 marks a game.
Although I will say he was improving in that area up forward probably in the last 4 or 5 games before he got injured. He was getting better.
No, definitely. He started actually showing some presence. I think he sort of worked into the season, even though he got injured in the middle of the season.
He won your most promising young player, so there must be something there.
Yeah, well, he was highly touted when we picked him up. So I really, he's a massive dude too. And then you bring in a guy like Meek, who's a massive dude for a different reason. Yeah, and can actually get around the ground. And this Mitch Lewis injury.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that. Yeah.
All bar locks in, they're both going to play.
Yeah, one has to kind of sit forward while the other one's rucking and they'll give each other a chop out.
Yeah, so I tend to agree. I cannot draft either of them because they'll both play. It's just not going to make any sense every week.
No, I agree. All right, Josh Ward, do you reckon the progression is locked in this year, or do you reckon there might be a case of second-year blues and he goes backwards a little bit? What do you think?
He's my favourite Hawk.
Yep.
He's actually my favourite player at the Hawks. In his first interview at the club, his voice is deeper than mine, and he just blew me away with how professional he was. And he was at training the day after he was drafted, and he's just an absolute workhorse. Now, he has got a little bit, I can't even think of what injury it is at the moment. It's completely escaped me, but a light niggle he's been sort of playing. It might have been a groin.
Yep.
I hope it wasn't. Maybe it was a groin. But yeah, so I think, unfortunately, he's at that weird average that people are probably going to go a little bit early on him for sort of a second year breakout. But an 89 average from round 17 to finish the year, I think the kid's an absolute star and he's just going to take off for this season. I just can't see a world where he doesn't.
Yeah. Now, I tend to agree as well. Like, he's just got, when you watch him, like, and you see, like, basically a young player like that just thrown in to play in the midfield, it's like, yeah, you think there's something special there that he could actually, bust out. So, and just being such a highly touted draft pick as well, like I see there's no issue there. I think I ran the numbers. Sorry, I'm not sure if you just mentioned this, but 89 average from round 17 onwards. So he put up some big scores in that back end of the season once he come back from, I guess he got dropped in the middle a little bit and then got concussed. So that kept him out for a little while. Is that what happened?
No, I don't think he got dropped. He got concussed, then he just...
Oh, then he came back through the VFL. Was that right? Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah, because he couldn't. He got concussed, and then I think he got like delayed concussion. So maybe that's something to keep in the back of your mind. Yeah. And he just couldn't quite get over his concussion. Then he had to come back through the VFL to actually get some run under his belt. But I mean, I think he's going to be second in line for CBAs this year. I can't see a world where he's not. He's not going to be resting forward. He's going to be smashing through the CBAs and coming off. The rest of the guys that are forward mid hybrids can do that forward role. He's locked in that midfield now.
Yep, no worries. All right, we'll move on to a stash option. Another player that showed promise, he was a draft pick last year that you picked up. That's Connor Macdonald. He was playing forward and a bit of wing time last year. Had a few CBAs, I think, as well, just tiny bits here and there. Do you think it's another development year for him, or do you think he's a breakout candidate also? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think someone like Cooper Stevens hurts him. Yeah. Gets brought in straight to that midfield. I don't see him being a bad pick. Like if you've got him on your rookie list or something, you're definitely going to keep him and he's going to play. Like obviously he's going to play every game. I think he wouldn't have played as many as he did last year and not get any games this year. But yeah, he's definitely going to keep forward status too. I would assume with the way that the forward numbers actually work. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with a 65 average.
Yeah.
Forward that you just stream week in, week out.
Yeah.
And he's not a keep if you haven't got keep rookies. But I think he's definitely a good pickup with the potential he goes high with some CBAs, but I see him 6th, 7th in line for CBAs.
Yeah, he's a while back. All right. Before we move on, do you have any additions that I've missed, do you think, on this show, Doc?
I've got a dirty one.
Okay.
And it's Chad Wingard.
I like this one.
it's a tough sell because the Chad just hasn't exploded in his life. Well, I mean, you could say 2 years ago he was horribly underpriced and then came in the back half of the year and exploded. But last year was a horrid year for him. He's getting older. He's getting more injuries. But I just think he was still in the CBAs last year when he played. So he still was pinch hitting, even in a year where we clearly were in a development year. He was still getting CBAs. So I think with a year when we've got something like it's a 22-year-old, a 19-year-old, a 21-year-old, and a 25-year-old, I think, are our top 4 CBA attendees from last year coming into this year.
Yep.
So in that sort of year, I think Chad Wingard will get a few hitouts in the midfield, and I reckon he's going to be dirt cheap. Like he's a guy you can pick up, and if he has some favourable matchups and he scores you an 80, that is gold.
Yeah,
like, I don't think he's going to do it week in, week out, but that's gold.
Yeah, I think the same. Like, I reckon he's going to get dropped into the pool now, so he'll be in the draft.
Yep.
Listed as a forward. Same kind of reason why I'm kind of higher on Carl Amon a bit more as well is, like they will probably have to throw a few mature bodies in there to look after the younger ones, from time to time. And, when he has those games, if you have him as a streamer or as a bench option that you can loophole on, or even no, probably isn't even F5 for most weeks, to be honest. If he gets you a 60, 70 around that mark most weeks, 100%. You'd be happy with that. So, I think that's a good option. Anyone else?
The last one's more of a watch. I don't really know what to get a read on. It's Cooper Stevens. I think he was picked up for a reason. They did trade for him, so I think he's a good pickup for the games he showed at Geelong last year. But we've got to watch it in the trial game. I mean, if he only gets 10 minutes in the guts in the fourth quarter, you put a line through him. You don't pick him up. He's a mid only, so he's not even worth it. But if you got a good commissioner that has nice rookie settings, and pick him up as a rookie, that'd be great. But
it depends.
I think he's 21 now, so it depends on the commish.
Yeah.
But he's a very tough sell as a mid only. But I think he can be a solid enough streamer if you run a really deep league.
Yep. No, I agree with that one as well. Good to see like a few signs getting a run last year at Geelong as well, finally as well. Good to see. He's always been one that's been in our black books. So I do like that one. And just coming to a new club, they must have seen something in him as well. So the signs are positive. Before we get on to the listener questions, just want to thank a few gold members. Thank you to Rowan Pickrell, Robert Malvindi, Bevan Lemon, Jordan O'Reilly, Josh Donhart, Glenn McAuliffe, Cameron Mills, Nathan Quarrell, Sam Morley, and Joshua Higgins. Thank you to those gold members for signing up. On our website, we've got heaps of premium resources for members. We're right into ranking season. Our defender rankings come out last week, and our top 100 midfielders are coming out on Wednesday. So sign up as a member, get stuck into all of those, and hopefully we can help you pull a few gems out of your draft. All right, let's get into the listener questions with Sanch joining us. Let's get into it. Patch to the Max asks, please tell me Lockie Bramble will be good. Not really a question, but can you tell him that Lockie Bramble will be good?
Sorry, Patch. I'm lying to myself about Will Day, mate. I can't lie to you about Lockie Bramble. I don't even know where he's going to play for his best 22. I hope he is because I love watching him, but nah, mate, that's a hard sell. That is a hard sell, that one. Showed good signs a couple of years ago. If you can get a role, there's a potential there, but just not sure where it is. At Cherdo5 asks, Connor Macdonald, what were his junior fantasy numbers? I'm bullish. I didn't actually have them in the show doc. I might come back to that one. Classic case of meaning to do that before the show and then not actually getting around to it. So we'll come back. At Toddman84, what do we think Impy's role is this year, and will he be worth picking up? So we've kind of already touched on that as well. Just want to rehash that one. Yeah, look, I think it's such a hard split because he plays so well forward of the ball and he's so damaging behind the ball when he gets it. So I think it's going to be a really hard gauge of where he's going to play. I think he's worth picking up mainly just on the idea of if, you never want to say, but if one of the guys in the back line goes down, I think he slots straight back in there, or maybe Lockie Bramble does, we don't know. But wherever he is, they want to get the ball in his hands because he just dashes and he's so electric when he gets the footy. If he's getting you a low 70s average, he's a great pickup. For sure. Just going back to Connor Macdonald, averaged 121.2 in the NAB League, so pretty handy there. Not bad. Can see why people are jumping on board. Let's go to at Taser87. Do Weddle and McKenzie play early and often? And if so, what roles do you see them playing? I can't see them playing early. McKenzie, I can see more. Weddle Weddle's a bit of a tough one because I don't really know where he fits in.
Yep.
Like there's so many players to fit in down there. Mackenzie, I think, will play just purely because there's going to be such a big mix that he may as well get games. Normally, the Hawks have been pretty good at when you get a game, you've earned your game.
Yeah.
So you're clearly impressed. So you're going to get a few games and a good run under your belt. You're not just in for 1 week and then out and then back in 6 weeks when you've done well on the twos.
Yep.
So even if they don't play early, I think it's still a pretty good pickup because when they do come in, you're pretty sure they're going to be good.
Yeah, for sure. Janitor's time asks, it's not a question, but Reeves is our number one ruck. So we'll just leave it at that. At Kurt Morgs, Josh Ward or Jai Newcomb in a keeper league. I have a feeling Newcomb this year, but Ward will quickly overtake and have the better career. Who would you be picking first in a keeper league?
Yeah, I'd be taking Josh Ward.
Yep.
I just love how he goes about it. Newcomb, I think, will be solid for years to come.
Yeah.
So he'll probably be that, I wouldn't say Luke Parker type because he's been more than solid.
Yeah.
But just someone that's going to sit around that 95 to 90 mark and just be super solid for your team week in, week out. You can always trust him.
Yeah.
Ward might go through some growing pains.
Yeah.
Like potentially this year. I hope not, but he may go through some growing pains. But when he finally gets there, I think he's our number one mid for years to come.
Yeah, I do agree. I think John Newcomb was just like a product of everything going. Well, not everything will continue going right, but it was just like his time to kind of take over in the midfield. We saw him kind of really burst ahead, but I'm not sure if there's much further growth there, if you know what I mean. Whereas I think Ward, the sky's the limit. That's all.
Yep, no, 100%. I think the way that Ward uses the ball and in that midfield, Newcomb will be the protector as such, even though he's only 22, I think.
Yeah.
But he'll become the protector and Ward will become that midfield gun and midfield jet and really take it to the next level.
All right. Dale Young, Finn McGuinness is stuck in no man's land. Will he finally get a chance to get to midfield time?
Oh, he got a chance last year with tagging roles and it just
didn't really stick.
I don't see tagging roles working, especially in a developing midfield. I know it helps to sort of slow the opposition's best player down and help your young kids to really get into the game. But I just don't see a world where he tags every week or he has much relevance. And
last question comes from Jaden O'Brien. And it's kind of contrary to what I've been saying all show, but is it really all doom and gloom for Eamon? Is there a world where he averages a score that's worthy of an M4, M5 in a keeper in a 12 out of 18 squad? So you keep 12, I think, there. He's averaged 199 in the last 2 years or something like that? You're keeping Carl Eamon. Absolutely, yeah. No, I don't think it's doom or gloom by any means. Yeah. I just don't know what role he plays. Yeah. I think he plays a similar role to what he played at Port, but I'd hope it's more inside than outside for Jaden's sake. I sat down and worked out the numbers once about his games on the inside and games on the outside, and they're quite sporadic. Like he will have games on the outside where he goes absolutely massive, but then he'll do the same on the inside as well. And sometimes it's only like 4 or 5 CBAs, and like it still bumps his score up huge. It doesn't feel like it actually I don't know, accurately reflects his score. I feel like in those games where he does go big, he's just on, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's more about just him being in the right mindset more so than getting midfield minutes. So I think it can fluctuate a bit because it's no hard and fast rule with him with the CBAs. He can score well on the wing. So whatever role he does play, I still think he's a 90 plus averager around that mark anyway, because that's just the type of game he plays. Coming to a new club rule, it's science. You know, you go to a new club, you perform better. and also he's just a senior head there now as well. It was actually surprised me that you picked him up because you've done this big clean out, and then I think Amon's now probably your oldest on the list, so you've picked up, he'd be very close. I don't think he's the oldest on the list because he's only 27. Yeah, he's 28 this year. I think Sicily might be. Oh, yeah, probably. But under him, it's like you've gone the opposite direction with everything else you've done by getting him in anyway. So, well, it's similar to something we did a few years ago when we picked up Chad Wingard. It made no sense. Yeah. We were going heavy in the draft, and we pick up Chad Wingard. So, I don't know if it's just to keep sort of the level head that we're still trying to get good players, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But I think that Amon's a guy that's not going to burn you. Yeah. So if you're keeping as an M4, M5, what are you expecting? 95, 90? No. If he drops a mid 80s most weeks, you're like, that's all right. That's still an M4, M5 range for me. Yeah, if I've got an M5 averaging 80, I'm pretty happy with that. So yeah, I'll take it all day. Absolutely. All right, Sanch, where can our listeners find you and your stuff that you do?
Yeah, head on over to Hat Chat. That's the main place. I can plug just like that. Just looking down at the moment. That's the best way to do it with the Hat Chat hats. But I'm over at Sanch Fantasy on Twitter. I'm always lurking. I had a bit of a joke because I had a bit of a lull this off season because I missed out on my own hat by 10 places, but we don't talk about that too much. Even though I'm now Mr. 110, which is really saddening.
Oh, look, mate, I'll take 110. I think my closest is about 728th, I reckon. So
I mean that's better than Nathan last year and Jake ever. So we'll give them something. But yeah, just always floating around on Twitter and over at Hat Chat. I think we're back into our weekly uploads now. So we've took a little bit of a hiatus, watched everyone else come back, and we were just itching. So we had our schedule, and now we're just bursting through the blocks. So.
All right. Good to hear. Well, you can get around our stuff on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok at Keeper League Pod for that one there. Make sure you head over to manscaped.com and use the code Keeper20 for 20% off and free shipping. And also, if you want to support the podcast, please sign up as a member. There's a link in the description below. Thanks, Sanch, and we'll talk to you soon. Take it easy.
See you later.
Oh, great. It's one of the better sign-offs.